Hello everybody, Andrew Casey from Hypersanity Books. Today I'll be talking about 10 writing tips from the movie Stranger Than Fiction. Number 10. Third-person omniscient perspective.
This is a story about a man named Harold Crick and his wristwatch. Every weekday for 12 years, Harold would run at a rate of nearly 57 steps per block for 6 blocks, barely catching the 8:17 Kronecker bus.
Now, with this perspective, it's opening the story where the author generally has a good idea on all there is to know about the character through the main plot. This is quite effective, and the movie has a way of demonstrating how the character thinks, how the character sees the numbers, and he knows who's narrating the voice. He's more than aware that this voice knows too much about how he thinks, and it's interrupting his personal life. Though the main problem I do find with this type of writing perspective is it overrules too much tell instead of show. That is one thing to consider with third-person omniscient perspective.
Harold found himself exasperated.
Shut up!
Cursing the heavens in futility.
No, I'm not. I'm cursing you, you stupid voice!
Number 9. Characters. The love interest is seen more as a sub-antagonist, which will be explained in the story. The antagonist is certainly the author. The assistant to the author, which also gives different writing advice through the movie. And then the deuteragonist, the other supporting character, is Dustin Hoffman's character. Now, he breaks down a lot of other writing advice. Number 8. Little did he know.
I just remember little did he know that this simple, seemingly innocuous act would lead to his imminent death.
Little did he know means there's something he doesn't know. That means there's something you don't know. Do you know that?
Therapy side, it touched on that in the story, and she just declared schizophrenia to the voice in his head. I took a different approach. So with this character, it didn't seem like it was worth his time to help, but talking about little did he know really drew him into wanting to help Harold Crick. And that's why, as the deuteragonist in the story, he is a very supporting character. Though I took that concept of little did he know and worked on this bit of dialogue, or opening to a chapter. So this is after a scene change in my upcoming book as a sequel to Dark Sparrow the Mastermind. So I'll just read this out. Later that day, Dr. Tracy Janolan reflected on recent therapy sessions, looking at her notes, beginning with Anna Chase. Little does Barrister Arlo Sergio know that Dr. Tracy Janolan knows that he lives through multiple personas, all struggling with various issues, living in denial, trying to make everyone else happy but himself. If he succeeds and is unhappy, then he'll be a classic textbook case study of the ultimate failure. So one thing with this type of storytelling, the professor helps more people with his profession, so to give one-on-one time to someone doesn't seem like it's worth his time. Though with that concept of little did he know and talking about the events coming forward, he felt like he should help.
10 seconds ago you said you wouldn't help me.
It's been a very revealing 10 seconds, Harold.
In this movie, she writes all of her books ending with the protagonist dying in every single book she writes. Now, that adds that tension and conflict into the story, to the voice that he's hearing, knowing that his character's going to die as events are unfolding through the main plot. Now, with what I'm sort of talking about there, you might learn with certain writing styles that you use, or a certain theme to a type of book that you write, that you might have that common theme throughout the book. So with the Dark Sparrow saga that I'm working on, every single book will follow through 7 stages of grief with each book. Though through certain parts of the story, I've also broken it down into certain points. So with book number 6 out of 7, at the climactic point in the 6th book will also be the highest point as a climax, revealing the big twist. Now, also that said, with the seventh being acceptance and resolution, the seventh book, the seventh ending, will be the ultimate resolution to wrap up the entire story. That's one of the themes that I'm going with the book, though it's set out to be a little bit varied between each story. So with this point, you could think about a particular trope or story that you like. You look at the Goosebumps, and it is true, and he said this himself. Every book has a beginning, middle, and twist compared to a resolution, and a lot of that genre does. In the story, Dustin Hoffman's character conducts a survey.
Find out what story you're in is to determine what stories you're not in.
And Harold Crick is not taking it too seriously because it is absurd with a lot of the questions being asked. The idea of this survey in the movie was to be the few questions to rule out different stories that he's not in, so they can try to find the genre that he is in. Knowing that his character's going to die, they need to find out who the author is. Though I say with this type of thing, you can take on information, talking to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, therapist, whoever. You can talk to other authors, you can talk to other writers, other people who are starting off more experienced. So if you do have an open mind to various content, you can find different information that may help you spark ideas that you didn't have before, and sometimes a simple idea or a simple survey can lead to an entire book being written.
Aren't you relieved to know you're not a golem?
Yes, I am relieved to know that I'm not a golem.
Good.
Number 5, open to suggestions. So the author's assistant that comes into the story to help her finish the book, she doesn't have a major role, though she does have a lot of different writing advice. She gives suggestions on, did you read the poetry I gave you? Though there are certain different opinions that she has. Whether it's right or wrong, it's still taking in different information. Sometimes watching different content, you could watch different writing videos, you could watch different top 10 videos, etc. And sometimes you can spark different ideas, though some of the different writing advice that she was giving, even though the assistant may not be an author herself, or she might have some qualifications within the field, the idea was to give the author that push to keep writing the book. Like, are you doing something each day to progress with the story? Number 4, environment. One thing I found with this story, so in conjunction to the assistant giving her advice, she was also feeling the weather, she was feeling the environment around her. So instead of being inside writing, she was trying to be in somewhere for the experience. Number 3, comedy or tragedy.
I'm an IRS agent. Everyone hates me.
So Dustin Hoffman's character gives him advice while talking to the love interest in the story. He gives the suggestion to taking certain notes, knowing that it's someone who's just come into his life. He's an auditor for the IRS, so he's a well-hated person just because of the profession that he's in. Though in the dialogue it shows him taking a few notes and ticking off comedy, tragedy, and it's more tragedy than comedy.
It was a really awful day. I know. I made sure of it.
So the character is opening up. Now, I don't like the instant early romances in stories. I don't like these sorts of tropes. However, to argue against myself, which is also something that is a way to challenge your mind, with that approach, the way she was opening up to what she was going to do with the profession of doing law, and did an essay on what she would do to change the world. She was also with a lot of study nights, baking, and then trying different things, and went from dropping out of Harvard to do something else that she enjoyed. I think that's also an important part of the characterization, and this was an important part of the story. It also humanized her character, and it also showed that Harold Crick was not a typical IRS agent or following any sort of typical stereotype. As the protagonist, you do follow the character and feel that he is a genuine, nice person. Taking notes like telemarks on certain points like that with character interactions is not actually a bad idea. And sometimes you might put in different categories or subcategories to a different conflict. Though, for the argument's sake, to keep the story simple, comedy or tragedy, and determine what story you are in and what you're dealing with. Sometimes a story can have that 50-50 balance of comedy and tragedy. Number 2, the plot continues. And then he has other interactions with his best friend, which builds up a little bit of the story on who Harold is. With this story, he also starts to realise he might be dying, so he may as well do some of the other things that he liked to do, such as learning the guitar. And I feel there was some good parts of the storytelling which is good with a lot of adult fiction when a character is finding themselves. Sometimes the narration, as I was saying, on the third person omniscient perspective, it can get to being a bit much to narrating. Sometimes it can be frustrating, though in another sort of sense, in between show and tell, sometimes just being told the story helps to unravel different discoveries of what the character's going through. And I quite like that part of the movie and the story. So he's choosing to have a relationship, though with this plot moving along, he ends up seeing within an interview who the author is, and finally meets the author face to face. And then that challenges the author, realizing that her character that she's writing about in her book actually exists. Number 1, emotionally involved. With the story, yes, she didn't kill off the character as she did to previous stories. She also felt guilty that she wrote about other people that may have been real people and died. With this particular point though, you may create characters and have emotional attachments to your characters. You might have a book series that you want to finish and wrap up and other people don't want it to wrap up, especially if you reference the movie Misery.
Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away? Don't even think about anybody coming for you. Not the doctors, not your agent, not your family, because I never called them.
Where a character got killed off and she didn't really take it the right way. You will find in your writing that you will find those sorts of challenges, especially when you are more emotionally involved with a character. You have an in-depth story, a complicated story. Sometimes when you base characters off people that you know, you might find other different conflicts that will challenge you with what you write. It might even challenge people who you know when you base a part of them off a character, vice versa, and they read the book. That can also create different challenges that are emotional ties. Otherwise, that's it for today. Hit like, subscribe, comment. I will be creating more videos about movies, specifically about writing, but that's another story and shall be told another time.